My name is Ruoyu, and welcome to my Open Data Week workshop on the urban light pollution solutions and open data. If you can scan the QR code here, you're gonna find the link to a Google Drive, which has the PDF version of my slides. So you can check it back later, or you can click on some of the links I'm provided during the presentation. Okay. So something about me, I'm a graduate student at NYU Center for Urban Science and Progress, and also a graduate research assistant on a light pollution project here at NYU, and also I'm the treasurer of the ASPRS NYU student chapter, and also doing intern at DarkSky International, and I'm a New York City delegate and a New York State chapter leader and Beijing chapter leader. And so what it is DarkSky International is the mission is to restore the net environment and protect communities from harmful effects of light pollution through outreach, advocacy, and conservation. So it's also my personal mission through my advocate, being an advocate for over a decade. So being so many presentations, hosting many events, being interviewed or publish articles. And yeah, and right now I'm also working with the Dark Sky New York chapter, focused on New York State local issues. And if you are interested, welcome to follow our Instagram and LinkedIn and scan the QR code to leave your email. So we're gonna follow you up with our updates. And here is a bunch of news you might saw in the past week. And this is about a bill proposed in the New York State Assembly and Senate. It was actually proposed about last year, but suddenly being on the news, and so many media is covering it. Even Chinese media are also covering it. They claim the new law want the New York to be let out after 11 p.m. But something not on the title, it's not like asking everyone to turn every light off after 11 p.m. You have to keep some essential lights, and you can leave the light on if you have proper shield and have a proper timer or motion sensor, so you can turn the light off at the right time, and or have the shield to control where the light's shining to. So the main misunderstanding of this bill, and many people maybe have different opinion on it, but I'm really glad to say this finally got the media's attention and can reach more people. So awareness is always the top one important thing right now in light pollution projects. And here is the bill, the state bill. The right one is a little bit standalone one, but those two, the Assembly Bill A4615 and the Senate Bill S5007, those two are basically the identical bill, and but posted one in Assembly, one in Senate. And yeah, so the best thing you can do right now is just check the sponsors, check if your local representative is one of the sponsors. If not, just write an email, reach out to them, and ask them to endorse the bill, and just hope this one can lift off from the committee soon and into the debate floor. New York is not the only one pushing light pollution legislation. There are many states already in the US, New York already have a little bit thing about light pollution in the public building law, asking the proper installation of the lights. And for one example, in Puerto Rico, they have a dedicated light pollution law in 2008, which is so many years ago, and they got many revisions. Even in 2020, they have another revision and keep updating it. And here is some example of how that law work. Like there are a huge problem in law enforcement of that law. There is only one person actually dedicated working on respond to requests or claims and approve billboards. But still someone is working in this issue. There is a law, and here's an example. This is a lighthouse in Puerto Rico. It's used to be super beautiful. You can see the Milky Way there, can capture great photos of the Milky Way, but suddenly they decided to put some lights there and ruin everything. But there's still a chance for there's a local advocate in Puerto Rico, Jamie. So he went to the office, spoke with that person in charge, and successfully turned that light off and returned the darkness to that area. And on the right bottom one is the red light on the beach area in the small island of Vieques, part of Puerto Rico. And they use those red light to specifically protect sea turtles back there. And when small little sea turtle babies are born, they want to find a way to the ocean. And in their gene, they know like the shining places usually is the ocean because the ocean reflect the starlight, reflect the moonlight. But right now they still go to the bright place, but the bright place become the cities or the road. So they have the danger of be crushed by cars. So that's why many beaches in Puerto Rico and also in many other places like Florida, they put those red lights around those areas so human we can see clearly and also sea turtles not too distracted by all the human activities. And also, yeah, US is not the only place propose laws on light pollution. There's one, the Chinese Ecological and Environmental Code just be approved about 2 weeks ago, and it's gonna be not in fact not take effect yet, but it's gonna soon be take effect in August. And I just selected some of the light pollution related articles, and if you scan the QR code, you can just read the English translation of the light pollution part of it. And also, yeah, light pollution legislation is trending in so many other countries in Europe. They specifically care about all the environmental causes, including light pollution. And yeah, we just hope there gonna be something in the federal level in the US also. And yeah, our idea is turn the city of like so many. Yeah, this is beautiful. We also don't want to waste it. What is wasted? You can say all the reflections in the water on the water is if the lights is properly designed and all the lights are useful, there shouldn't be any light on the water. It shouldn't be like this much of reflection. So we want to turn the cities not too much like we don't want like a pure darkness. We don't want to make sure you can see Milky Way in New York City is not the case, but we want responsible use of light so you can see the Milky Way or see some stars and also with the light on the ground at the same time. And yeah, I really enjoy doing this because I was an amateur astronomer. I love stars. I love Milky Ways. I went to different places. Those are in West Coast, Arizona, Utah, and I took those pictures. And they are pretty famous. The whole state of Utah, Arizona, Colorado, they really care about the dark sky. They propose state legislations. They have so many parks that were designated as International Dark Sky Park because they specifically show their lights, they use their light properly and responsibly. And in the meantime, we have places like New York, other Shanghai, Chongqing, and in Los Angeles, we call it a city of stars. This is a famous observatory. It's an observatory, but also heavily light polluted. And you can even see like ish. It was create. I mean, it's something related to air pollution, but also it bounces the lights back and forth and traps some lights like a dome to cover the whole city. So this is a huge issue, and also you can see all the lights got reflected on the water, and all the lights reflected by the cloud, which is absolutely unnecessary for those lights on the crown of the buildings. So the main idea is since the dawn of our civilization, people created lights, people use lights for safety or for a better life and in the dark. But it soon becomes something like this. It's in Las Vegas, and some people want to see them as decorative reasons, but not every city need to be Las Vegas. We're gonna talk about what is light pollution and why we care about it and how can we help to solve it. What is light pollution? This is a definition by DarkSky. Light pollution is a human-made alternation of outdoor light levels from those occurring naturally. So basically, any human-made lights, we consider them as light pollution, but not all light pollution are bad. Some of them we need them for security reasons, for safety reasons, but there are in the meantime a lot of wasted lights generated. And the result is there's one study found the light pollution is increasing by about like 10% every year, and 80% of the world population lives under sky glow, which is the Milky Way is absolutely not visible. And in the US and Europe, is 99% of the population living under light polluted sky. And some of the major types of light pollution, one is the glare. The famous example is the car headlight. When you drive and you can be totally blinded by those lights, or you can be blinded by billboards on the road, which cause huge safety risks. Like those lights are there for safety reasons, but if they didn't design properly, it's gonna cause new safety problems. And another one is light trespass, which is basically your neighbor's lights shining into your windows, which you don't want them. You don't want hear noise from your neighbor. You don't want garbage from your neighbor through into your yard. But yeah, you also don't want any external light shining into your house that you have like no absolute control. And sky glow is what we talked about in the Los Angeles case. This dome covering the whole city, created by all the combination of lights generated in the urban settings. And here's measurements done by National Park. They designed the special equipment to capture the light pollution condition. And here in Flagstaff, Arizona is one of the earliest city to control light pollution through legislation. And because they have a professional observatory there, they have a observatory discovered Pluto. So the local astronomers proposed legislations, and then they became the first international dark sky place designated by DarkSky International. And compare Flagstaff is with another city with a similar population, similar size, taking the picture from similar distances, and you can see the huge difference here. And yeah, you may argue like more people can generate more light pollution, or a better economic situation can generate more light pollution, but it's not the case. Through legislation, you can solve this problem and can reduce the sky glow a lot. Other minor light pollution are from squid boat or other fishing boats. They use those lights to capture fish, but they also can generate a lot of unexpected light pollution. Here's some case in mainland China, in Taiwan, and those green or reddish colors are generated from a couple fishing boats, but in certain weather conditions, they can cover the whole city, and all the local residents are scared. What is that? And yeah, here's just a conclusion of different types of light pollution. We only want those useful lights, and we don't want those lights to shining into your doors. We don't want too much of them to be reflected to the sky and be reflected again by the clouds and bounce back and forth. And yeah, of course, there are other daytime light pollution also, and mainly caused by the glass window of the buildings, which can create glare. One famous example is in London. They have I forget the name, but they have a building with glass and design like a concave mirror, and they can focus all the sunlight into several couple spots to create like really hot spot on the ground. And of course, it creates problem for the birds and this is a mean cause of bird collision. Sorry? Yeah, I think so. No, the one on the north side of the river. I forgot the name. And yeah, so the problem is more is not better. People may argue we have the light for security reasons, but it's not the case if you compare this famous photo. So if you have a properly installed light, you can be blinded by those lights in your own home. But if you cover this light, you can see someone is hiding there behind the door. So yeah, you can have light to see things clearly, but if someone hiding in the dark and the light is straight shining into your eyes and make you blind, you can never find the people hiding in the dark and create more worse safety concerns. So yeah, more isn't better. Another local case is in the public housing project in New York. There was a group of researchers from Chicago. They collaborated with local authorities and IPDs to run a kind of experiment in public housing. They installed those floodlights and they compared the crime rate before and after the installation and claimed more or less help reduce crimes, but I just don't really agree with that. There are so many other factors impact that, and if you want to put some lights in public housing, you don't want those for the New Yorkers released an article talking about it. Not everyone enjoy it, especially people living those areas. Like why you want to see those super bright lights shining into your window, and this also poses a really huge equity issue. Like for people living in richer communities, they have the control of what kind of lights to be installed near them. They have HOA, they have like other methods. But for people living in public housing, they don't have control of them. Just a bunch of researchers came here and decided to put those floodlights on. And globally, light pollution is a huge global issue. As we just said, 99% of people living in Europe and North America cannot see Milky Way, and it's growing globally. So here's a statistic from recent research: 10% every year in the past decade. And in the case of US, here's a simulation of light pollution from satellite data. And here are the only places you can see Milky Way in the US. And those are the only area have like untouched dark sky, natural dark sky up to now. So here's the only places that still remains dark, and it's gonna keep getting worse. So why we care about that? We care about light pollution for protect wildlife and the ecosystem, to benefit human health, to save energy and money, and for safety and security reasons, we don't want glare, and we also want to preserve our cultural heritages. And for astronomy, for the research part, we have ancestors looking at the stars, drawing them on the stone, and recorded them and inspired them until now there are telescopes, professional telescopes around the world to study our universe. And but one problem is this example is Kidd Peak National Observatory. So they host they were one of the best sites for US professional astronomical research. They set those telescopes there because they are high on the mountain and they are far from cities when they first installed those telescopes. But what happens now is here's Phoenix. Like the closest city is actually Tucson, but this is Phoenix in 100 miles away. And you can still see all the lights created from 100 miles away and threatening professional research. So that's why a lot of telescopes is moving to more remote places like in Chile or Hawaii and just try to get away from the light pollution, but it's not still not a perfect solution because we also have Starlink and other small satellites launch, like so many are launching, and they also even want to build data center in the space. And those small satellites also pose a great threat to astronomical research, and it's a new form of light pollution. And light pollution is threatening our natural world. In the example we just talked about, threatening sea turtles, and we definitely don't want those baby sea turtles crushed by the car and run into the road. And we have so many species living at night. Mammals, bird, we have invertebrates, and also a lot of birds, insects, and just light pollution is threatening them all, especially for migrating birds. New York is on a corridor for bird migration, and during the peak migration seasons, some of them are caused by daytime light pollution, the glare reflected by the glass wall, and a lot of them caused by nighttime light pollution because a lot of birds migrate during the night. And there are research showing birds tend to stay in the city for extra longer of time during their way of migration, and the main causes of cross light pollution. And yeah, 1 billion birds a year killed just by crashing the buildings. And one famous local example is the 9/11 tribute lights. We put them up several days every year, and so many birds just be trapped by those lights. And but fortunately, we have people locally care about this situation, so right now there are some volunteers be there every night when the lights were up and just observe how many birds were trapped there. If so many birds are there, they just temporarily turn off the lights to let the birds go their way. But yeah, it's not the perfect solution, but I'm glad to say there are more people realize this problem and want to contribute to solve the problem. And the insects, pollinators. By the way, I'm really happy to say there are a lot of fireflies was seen last summer in Central Park and in some other parks. That means our ecosystem is recovering. Good thing to say because Central Park probably is one of the darkest area in the city. And yeah, many insects are vanishing because of light pollution. Impact bats if they go out at night, and also many useful lights near water bodies. So create problem for the fish because supposed to see those amount of light at night and impact the whole marine ecosystem and also impact the plants. Here's one of the famous example. You can see the tree. Seems like on a single tree there are two totally different seasons. One is near the light bulb, one is further away. Yeah, you can argue maybe this created by because maybe it's warmer near the light, but it's still the problem created by the light. And you can say this research find out the season is also kind of changing because of light pollution. And another example is you can see near the street lights, there are just two different colors on the soybean field. And right now people utilizing lights as a way to grow their farm. But yes, it's okay to use those technologies, but we just don't want those lights to be shining to other places beyond the farm and not want those lights to shining upward to the sky. Also impact climate change because we use unnecessary lights. That means we pay extra bills for the energy, which means we're gonna generate more energy to meet the needs, which is absolutely unnecessary. So many lights are wasted, so many energy are wasted, which contribute to the global climate change. And for public health, so everyone need healthy darkness because we human like wildlife, we get used to the darkness through the whole evolution, and our body is already adapted to natural darkness, and all the new technologies in here to change our night into day, which kind of totally destroyed our body's patterns and impact our, let's say, melatonin release and disrupt our sleep and create more cancer problems from there. So here's a natural, how the natural way should be. During the day, we have more blue whitish color generated by the sunlight, and towards sunset and toward the sunrise, the whole world is like amber yellowish. So this is a natural way, and like inside office buildings, we sometimes try to mimic this light color. So when you're in those office buildings or in school, you can see most of the lights are bright and white with a lot of blue on it, because we want to use them to simulate the outdoor natural sunlight settings and to stimulate us and to give us more energy to work and to study. But we don't want those kind of lights at home at night. When you want to sleep, you want to make your environment more like this amber-ish to help you with your sleep, because you don't want to be so energetic at night. One another example is your phone, your computer all generate a lot of blue lights. And yeah, there are some functions on your phone and to turn on some like night modes, so they can reduce a lot of the blue emission to, it's also a way to help you see. Yeah, high levels of light pollution correlated with many diseases, and here's a phone issue. And so how can we help to solve this problem light at night? So the first thing is have the awareness of this is a pollution, just like other pollution, like air pollution. Is this light pollution is a pollution. So it can be solved at the speed of light. And it does not mean turning off all the lights. Here's our idea of responsible use of light. Better lights for better lights. Those are the old styles of light you can see in many places. A lot of lights are wasted just toward the sky, and some newer style, slightly better but still unacceptable. This is still a bad light, but you can see those lights in Central Park and in many parks in New York, because they claim they want to preserve the historical design of the lights. But so many lights are wasted. If you go there outside, especially for Central Park, there are elevation change. There are some like small hills, and you can see the lights are shining into those hills in the horizontally, which there's no one is walking there, so it's all wasted. A better way is to properly shield them and make sure all the lights are shining into where it's supposed to be. And the best way is beyond photo shield, you put the timer and motion sensor there. Make sure you dim the lights or completely turn it off passing a certain time, and or only turn it on when someone is passing by. And here is the 5 principles of responsible outdoor light at night. Make sure the light is useful is a top priority, and make sure it's correctly targeted. The direction is one of the most important things. And the low level, we don't want it too bright. We just only want it to meet our needs. And we want it to be controlled, which means timer and the motion sensor, or you just manually turn it off when you don't need them. And use warmer colors. It's best for not just for human health, not just for your sleep, but for the whole ecosystem. So you can find this chart with all the details on our website, darksky.gov, and also you can see there's a poster outside. And here's one of the example of good lighting. This is a sample done by the New Jersey advocate Stevens. So this is his own home and property show light. You can see how the lights pass. It's not shining horizontally, not shining upward, and it's only when it's necessary and only shining into the place you need. And also another way to help is help bust some of the common myths. One is the case we just showed. More light doesn't mean more safety, but properly designed light means better safety. And also we don't want those unrespectful lights shining into a public housing. And keep in mind, dark sky is not a privilege for DarkSky International recognize a lot of international dark sky places if they meet our criteria. And you can see many places are centered in the US or in Europe, and more coming in Asia. And so when I do advocacy in China, we were thinking maybe some of the first dark sky places, maybe in super remote area, maybe in Tibet, maybe in some like already pretty dark places. We want to preserve the darkness, maybe for research, for astronomical research reasons. But surprisingly, the first international dark sky community in China is in Shenzhen, which is super mega city. And that means like also more inquiries came from big cities, Shanghai, Beijing. They have a lot of inquiries. They want to establish dark sky places. Why? Because they finally have the money to spare to properly change the lights, to pick the right lights, to care about the light pollution problem. So this is the point of equity and privilege. We certainly don't want this light pollution. The whole dark sky movement only happens in already richer communities. We want all communities have the awareness to know light pollution is a problem. The best way is even like during the process of rapid urbanization, during the time when we install more lights on the street, we want to have the awareness, keep light pollution in mind, so we don't just waste money to change it later in time. And yeah, doing another way for students, for researchers, just doing more research on it. This is still a relative new field. And this is a really new article just released, I think, last month, investigating the spread white lights, how they gonna impact the drivers on the road. And the conclusion, you can say, object color influence the visibility more than the color temperature. So it's still a new field, and I would just hope more people want to do more research, study more, and this is also a way to raise the public awareness. And always think about the right way of designing the light. So this one is, I think it's much prettier than the old design. And the old design just put a bunch of lights around there and not caring about weird shining, just put some lights there. But better design can shine the light to the right parts of the building, and not to create problems or not create glare or create light transpass to the surrounding area, and also can save a lot of energy. And realize lights, like good lighting design can be beautiful. There can be nice design in the communities. Instead of wasting a lot of energy, turn on those lights in the parking lots where no cars is there, no one is there. And yeah, here's an example in New York. You can guess what time is it? It's midnight. So you can only see this at 3 a.m., which I don't know, maybe New Yorkers sleep later than other cities. But I think it should happen much earlier. As a new law proposed, we want to have a lot of turn off at 11 p.m. And especially like for those kind of lights. This one is a parking lot belongs to, I think, Con Edison. They are an energy company themselves, but they leave the lights on the whole night. when there is no one there, no car there, but they still have the lights on the night. And here's another comparison. And some bad examples, the new building, the new JP Morgan building. This one is not, this one's when they running test, I think sometime last year when they run the test, say all the reflections on the East River. And yeah, you can see they have a kind of better artist design patterns on the crown of the building for most of the nights, but it's not always the case for some special occasions like the St. Patrick Day last week, or they have those greenish lights on, and they sometimes put American flags, they even put UK flags there, and those not amber lights can create huge problem for the neighborhood. And another way is through legislation. Here's the older New York State legislation on building lights. For the New York City ones, there were two passed in 2018, mainly focused on city-owned buildings. One is to regulate the lights for all city-owned buildings, and yeah, here's when they put into the law. And another one is for city-owned or leased buildings to control the light properly during the peak migration period. And we definitely want this to be applied to more buildings, not just city-owned. And New York State proposed laws even in 2004. Back then, it's even got passed by the New York State legislatures, but then opposed by New York City mayors somehow. So at the end, this bill wasn't signed by the governor and just totally gone, and it was 2004. And up to now, people are still proposing new laws. There are so many versions of lead pollution bills or proposed nearly, I think, every session. And the same for New York City. So those are some of the bills we're proposing last session. So we had a new session, I think, since last November, but the new session, I didn't say any new laws were proposed yet. And some of the laws were proposed for some famous occasion. I don't know many of you familiar with this. Also, black hole. It was escaped from the Central Park Zoo, and since so many New Yorkers are tracking this all, and the tragedy is we found dead near a building, so the gases passed away because of collision into the building. So that's why some of the bills were proposed to not just control the nighttime light pollution, but also to regulate the glass facade on the buildings. And so a good approach is try to reach your representatives, try to ask them to sponsor the already proposed bill or propose new bills in city level, in state level, in county level, just like whatever representative you can talk with. And here at DarkSky have some samples, not just legal legislation templates, also more like technical ordinance templates. Just go to this website and just do a simple registration and get the free templates. You can use them and send them to your local representatives. And also join our growing communities, become a member or become an advocate, or just spread the word and follow our social media accounts and convince more places to be designated as international dark sky places, and or apply for our dark sky approval program, which certifies good lighting designs. And yeah, this is actually a famous example of good lighting design for sports fields. Clearly see the lights are only shining to the sports field, which is not so common yet. A lot of neighboring communities around sports field or have really lots of complaints about them because they probably turn the lights on even though there's no sports happening. But the correct design, the best design, can only limit the lights to the sports field itself. And the last part, we're gonna just talk about some research, the ways of measurements and the open data around light pollution. First one is the local case in New York City, we have a really good resource 311, and you can actually call 311 if you have a glare from a parking lot. It's good and bad. The bad part is they specifically said if you have glare came from your neighboring buildings, which is maybe like a residential or commercial buildings, you have to resolve it yourself. You cannot call 311 for that. But surprisingly, you can call 311 for less from parking lot. And you can also complain about building signs. So though if they are too bright when they shine into your home, those are like the logo thing on the building, and also advertising sign. You can complain if they not meet the regulation, they're too bright and disturb you. And another kind of related one, street light complaints, if you find it's uncomfortable or it's broken or anything, you can that. And from the MIC Open Data Portal, you actually obtain a copy of the 301 service request. So this one is a newer one from 2020 to now, and there are also older data sets from the past decade. And then you can pull out the locations when they send the request. So this is the location I pulled for the first complaint, the light from parking lot. And you can see some parking lots get complaint like every year basically, and still not solving the problem. And more publicly friendly way of visualizing light pollution is in this light pollution map website. They have different layers of satellite data from different years. Also, they also have different layers of ground measurements and location observatories. And yeah, just a really public friendly way of seeing where it's dark and find where to stargazing. And more scientifically, a lot of in the past decade, the most trended light pollution data were captured by VIRS, which is the equipment on right now. It's on 2 or 3 different satellites. They visit the same place. They can visit the same place both day and night every day. So they have a really good temporal coverage of the data. And you can just use the link to learn more about this equipment. And NASA used this data to create their own data suite called the Black Marble. So they are not just use this for study light pollution, they also can use it to study energy changes, like to study disasters. One of the famous example is they studied the blackout during the hurricane season in Puerto Rico. And yeah, some researchers from NYU from Tandon also published a lot of research around that, used those data suites to study after disaster how the lights are gone and how long it took to finally for the lights to back up. And also study wars, of course. Many people use those satellites to study like Ukraine wars and publish data sets. So in 2 different satellites use the same equipment. They have daily data and the more cleaner monthly composited data. This is yearly composited data. They have their own algorithm to filter out clouds, filter out snows, and they have they put them into different grids, so it's not like a one huge TF file for the whole world. They have a small different grid. Just pick the correct grid when you download the data, and you can easily visualize them. You use some of the open source software. The HDF5 is a format of those data. And this is one example of the website can easily visualize the data. You can see all the different layers. They even split it into all angle and near nadir, so it's more straight above when the satellite pass. And they have the quality indicators to say when they compose the daily images into monthly or yearly, how many images were used into that single pixel. and split the snow with snow cover and without snow cover. So yeah, it's super useful. And if you want to use those for research, you can use a Python library called the H5py. Just the easy way to visualize, and you can do zonal statistics on it. And another alternative is from the Earth Observation Group from the Colorado School of Maine. They publish their own version of Compost Annual, and just have slightly different algorithm. They are best at remove those glitter or streetlights, maybe like from some mining sites. So this one compare with those grid files, those one produce a single TIFF file for the whole world. So you probably one image for 1 year is like 10 gigabyte ish. So you need to have a good computer to do the analysis, and can through GS software you can clip them the way you want. And you also can run statistics on Google Earth Engine. Here are some examples of the dataset available there. Some of them from Black Marble, some of them from the Colorado School, and also some data from another satellite. The DMSP is older satellite, was launched like pretty. They have the data coverage even back to 1992, but the resolution is not ideal, and they often got overexposed, oversaturated in big cities, especially in New York City. But if you want like more time back to last century, this is a good alternative, and then you can run statistics on that. And here is another new satellite. This is a Chinese satellite, STG Sat-1. The good thing about it is they have 4 different bands compared with the VIIRS only have 1 band, and the spatial resolution is super high. So for 1 layer, the P layer is covering the whole color spectrum, and the resolution is 10 meters compared with the VIIRS, which is around like 500 meters. This is a huge difference. They have 3 RGB layers, has a resolution of 40 meters, and it's semi-open data. You can submit your research proposal to them to have access to the data. But actually, after you register an account with them, I think you have 30 free quota to download any images you want. So a 30 images quota, because this one is not like always visiting the same place every day. So since it launched in like about 2022, I think, up to now in New York City, there are only 22 images are downloadable from New York City. So you probably don't need like whole 30 quotas. So before you need to submit a proposal. And yeah, sure. Yeah, just near the end, but yeah, I can just answer any questions you may have up to now. Yeah, air pollution definitely contribute a lot to light pollution because they bounce. Yeah, I think a lot of building construction, there are many regulations, what kind of lights you can use, when you can use them, also related to noise issue in building constructions.
Floodlights alone can't account for all the light pollution. What about additional building construction, air pollution, smoke plumes? That was the question.
Yeah. Building construction sites definitely is one of the major source of light pollution, but there are also regulations on not just lights, but also on noise, or many different perspective on when or where you can put the lights on, and air pollution definitely contributes a lot. So especially for sky glow when it's during bad weather, when it's many fog or heavily air polluted, those small particles bounce the lights back and forth, so can make the city worse, much brighter than it's supposed to be. Yeah, light pollution is not like a standalone thing, and also a better way to solve the problem is also considering improving the air quality in the cities. So the question was about the community science, community input. So this is actually in the later slides here. There is one program called the Globe at Night. you can go to this website, and what they do is for different seasons, they have different target area, target constellations to observe. And you just put your locations, and you go to a kind of relatively dark place around your home and look at the sky. There are different charts you can compare to. So compare what you say with the charts they provide to identify like how many stars in this constellation you can see, what's the sky condition looks like. And then each of them correlated with different light pollution conditions, and then you submit the reports. So this one is mainly managed by the US National Observatory. And you can download the data, you can view them on the map. And also the same program have some like more scientific fixed equipments around the world, also collect huge amount of data. There are actually some researchers use those citizen science data to publish meaningful research outcomes. The one claimed the light pollution is getting worse 10% every year. I think that one is from those citizen science data. It definitely it's a problem across all spectrum, but our lights more designed to emit lights in the visible range. So I think the main problem came from the visible range, and the other non-visible spectrum range are just not huge problem compared with the visible range. Inside the visible range, actually, the worst problem came from the blue wavelengths. So if you check this chart, so the modern LEDs have a huge problem compared with other older technologies. They have a huge blue area, blue peak, the blue wavelengths. And the bad thing about the weird satellite is actually they cannot really capture this blue wavelengths, but the SDG set can capture that. And yeah, I just want to find a better way and have a better understanding of how the world changes across the whole spectrum, not just focus on the absolute color temperature. Like you can have the spectrum like this, like those LEDs, and at the same time, the color temperature can be pretty low, like 3000 K or even 2700 K. It looks pretty warm, pretty like amber-ish lights, but they can also still emit a lot of blue lights. You just cannot really distinguish them. It's nature of the LED technology, and those blue lights create a lot of problem, not just for human health and also for the other wildlife. And yeah, you also can see beyond the visible range, there are not many like lights were emitted from the modern light bulbs. Yeah, the question is what kind of open data we want to see from the city on this issue. And actually one of the data sets I personally really want to see the street light locations. So most of the street lights are managed by DOT, and even including those lights inside the parks. Inside NYC parks are also managed by DOT. They have a technical menu specifying all different kinds of lights, all their requirements for those lights. And if I have a layer, like a data set of where those lights are and what type of lights they are, when they got installed, what kind of design they have. But yeah, I request them from the NYC data portal, and DOT said for security concerns, they're not gonna release it. But yeah, I think there are still maybe some channels to request the lights certain neighborhoods. But if you look at the satellite data for the whole city, like yes, street light is part of the source of light pollution, but the biggest problem came from those midtown area. Here's the QR code to a Google Drive, and you can find the PDF version of the slides. So feel free to talk with me if you have any questions. And thank you everyone who's attending in person and online. Thank you.